Welcome back to episode 13 in this FXS Lowrider restoration series, also known as part 4 in the transmission rebuild series, or part 2 in the reassembly of the transmission series. Either way you look at it, we're moving ahead. If this is your first time watching these videos and you want to start from the beginning, hit this link up here. We'll take you to it, and hit that like button down here. Helps me out a lot when you do. Hit that subscribe button to get the latest videos as they come out, and that little bell, because subscribe is worthless without it. In this video, we're going to jump right into the counter shaft assembly. This is going to be the standard take it apart, clean each individual piece, inspect it to see if it's still serviceable, and then we're going to reassemble everything, and we're going to install it in the transmission. We're going to check for end play, which I know is going to be wrong, spoiler alert, because this is already the wrong size at this point. So let's get started. There it is, all stripped down, disassembled. Before anything, I do want to point out that in this particular year, or from 79 and a half forward, I believe, they started using these pressed-in caged needle bearings like this. And the book talks about them not being serviceable, or you just spin it around with your finger to see if there's an anomaly. Look at some other markers for indication of wear. I'm not going to be doing that on this. Again, I reached out to the Shovelhead forum, and they were able to help. Ray chimed in, actually, and gave me a source for the new bearings. So I've ordered them. We're going to pull these out. We're going to put in new bearings. We're not even going to worry about it. These are going away. So long as, of course, this is serviceable. I've taken a brief look at it anyway. Everything seems okay on this, so we're just going to go ahead and reuse it after it's cleaned. We'll note that on this model, there is no gear for the speedometer. The speedometer on my bike comes straight off the front tire. Cable goes directly up into the speedo mechanism. These particular bushings that we see here, this one and this one, for these associated gears, are part of the rebuild kit that I have, so they're not going to be reused. These will be thrown away. We're going to be setting up now to pull the bearings from this gear set. We use a blind hole bearing puller set. I believe this looks about right. This is the Dash 3. There's a 13/16 collet pin assembly. Let me see if I have better luck with the other side. If I could get the other side out, this side could be pressed out. I'm set up for this side now. Let's give it a whirl. This takes some strength. This is no joke. Oh yeah, that's moving. There it is, and that's what it looks like on the inside with the tool. So it grabs the inside. There's no scoring on the race. This looks good too. Looks like it came out clean. Everything here seems okay, and I didn't think there was a problem here. I just wanted the bearing out to be replaced, that's all. So now I'll be able to get something down here to push this one out, because this is not going to be hammered out. What I'd really like to do to protect this gear is see if I could get this started on the press, just to deflect it a little, loosen it, and then come back to this puller and finish it off with the puller so I don't damage that inner race. I have an 11/16 deep well socket that will fit down inside here and push against the back of the other bearing. Again, this is just to move it a couple of millimeters to get it started so I can use the bearing puller. So I'm going to bring this over to the press now. Again, we're only going to be deflecting this a couple of millimeters. That's it. I don't even have an opening on the bottom plate. Take a look. And that's exactly what we wanted right there. So you heard it pop out, and now I could get the bearing puller around that and finish the job correctly with the right tool. Based on how loud that was, it was obviously a whole lot holding that in, and manual hammering was not going to remove that. I'm going to reapply the puller now to this bearing. I'll tighten this down with pliers now. Got him. Let's take a look at this one. This was on there. It looks like a very mild rust line right here. Just a little bit of moisture got in. Probably that's what made it so hard to remove. Nothing bad at all though. This is not by any means a problem. Look at that. Look at all that. That's that like metal. I don't know what that is. It's like metal shavings from the transmission failure. The race itself looks good. And that's all I care about because, you know, this bearing is gone. I don't care. This could be cleaned out properly. And we're ready. We're done with this. Just clean it up and prep it for new bearing installation. Okay, now everything's fully broken down. Now we can begin. I'm gonna have to get this all cleaned up before I go down to the shop. Dried it off with a paper towel and pretty much told me if I did a good job and hit everything I was supposed to. This is all nice and clean. All the gears look like they're in good condition, so I'm ready to bring this down to the shop now to press in the bearings on both sides. First thing though, I'm going to hit this with oil now to preserve the metal. Going to throw these bad boys in the freezer for a while, right next to Little Debbie. We'll be using the old bearings for staging and what have you. Setting up staging now, I put down a nice piece of sheet metal here so I don't mar the end faces of this gear. I'm going to go with the easy side first, so it's not top heavy, so I'm going to lay it like that. And to do the staging, I'm going to use the old bearing, just so I don't have to run out of time. The other one's still in the freezer. A good fit for this is a 17mm socket. Flat side up. Check my alignment. Now just before I get to flush, I want to make sure that everything is again perfectly aligned because I don't want it to get caught. Good time to look. Everything looks good, but I just want to make sure it's sitting in the middle. I don't want it to grab on it. And so one more time. Okay, everything's centered. And just going just a little bit under. I'm going to take a look, but that should be good. Now I'm going to flip it around, do the exact same thing on this side. Do the restage, get it all set, and pull the bearing out of the freezer. This one turned out to be too wobbly in this direction with the extension, so I readjusted, I removed the extension, and now I'll continue to drive in the bearing, that's all. And it was much easier to center. And we're done. Each of these remaining pieces will now be washed and inspected and brought back to the counter shaft for reassembly. For those wondering, this retaining ring is not in the rebuild kit. They actually provide another one, but it's not the same size, something else. But this is not one that's the kind where you put it on, if you try and remove it, it's not reusable. This one springs around and snaps right back into place. I don't think I have any problem reusing this one. It definitely was not damaged removing. So I'm going to put this one back in. Check for fitment, make sure this bushing fits nice. Oh yeah, it's really good. Note there is a flange on one side to push up onto the gear here. Once it's in here, it does compress slightly, and I cannot get it over this shelf. Forced to divert for a moment, I'll explain. Use this other gear as an example. This is the new bushing in the gear. A litmus test for quality as I drop the bushing in is if I hold it like this, that you can see the gear still spins with the bushing in it. There's no slop, there's no slack. And what it is between the gear and bushing, you know, the oil takes up the however many, maybe 1 or 1.5 thousandths of an inch, I don't know. And that's it. It's supposed to be free spinning. And then this would drop on the shaft. What we have on this one, when I tested it on this shaft, looked good on the shaft. However, pushing it in here required some resistance. I don't want to say it was impossible, but there was some effort involved. And that effort caused this to collapse ever so slightly. And you could not do that test. You couldn't put it on here and expect it to turn. It was frozen. And because of that collapse, you could not obviously get it to seat on the shaft. This is the old bushing. So now what do I have to do? I have to go, and I could either use the old bushing, which I really don't want to, even though it's okay, but we're doing a complete rebuild and I want to be thorough. I now have to order another bushing. And I can't return this to JMP because this is part of a rebuild kit, so I have to get one separately. So I have to stop what I'm doing and do this. And I don't like dealing with these quality problems because I'm using OEM shaft, OEM gear, nothing aftermarket here. And worst case scenario, okay, you could expect if something wore down, there'd be too much slop, too much slack here, too much end play. That's not the case. The problem is the thing is too thick, at least on the outer portion, because as I've demonstrated, when it's not in the gear, it's really nice fit on the inside. The problem is the outer diameter is too thick and it's compressing against it like that. Garbage. So now I got to stop, delay, and order more parts for this job. If I get this next bushing from Jim's and it also doesn't fit, we're going to be going with the original bushing. We'll get a refund for that, and we're done ordering bushings because it's clear they just... I'm not going to go and machine precision bushings because they can't get them right. I'm done with it. I've measured the old bearing, and I've got 1 inch and 689 thousandths and 1. So this is the measurement of the old bearing, 1 and 0.6891. The new one measured 1 and 691 and 1, 1.6911 thousandths of an inch. And I called up JMP about this, and they were really nice enough to send out just the new part. Even though this came as the transmission rebuild kit, they sent it out immediately. And when it had arrived, I placed it in, and it worked just fine. Even doing that test after I oiled it, it just runs good in the gear. So everything seems okay. I would like to pull it back out, though. Just take a measurement of this one. See where this one's at. Looking good. This one being brand new. I'd like to see how close it is to the original. And this looks like 1 and 6893. 1.6893. So this is almost identical to the original bearing size, which is what I would expect. I could be off here ever so slightly too in how I'm doing this, but I thought that was interesting. And this one does fit as expected, looking very much like the original one. And this one was the dud. So we're going to be able to put this in the gear and continue onward with the project. And with that, this is already oiled up and just taking it out. And like I said, this just, as long as it's straight, like that, I just slide it right in. No problem at all. Good fit. And this should be able to slide right on the shaft here. Actually found it easier just to slide this down on the shaft first, only because they separate. So I just put that down there and just place this right there, just like that. And that worked out a lot nicer. And this moves, I could see that this moves, and I just want to inspect. I'm going to take this off just to look and see that this moves independently of that. Right, that's what we're looking for. I would like to pull it back, however, just because it's been a while since I've worked on this. I just want to get a little bit of oil under here, so that can be worked through. I don't want this to be dry fit. I'm going to put this back and turn it a couple times. Then get some oil on the outside of this for the gear. Now I could see both of them moving inside there, and that's what I was looking for. I'm going to put a light coat of oil on this washer, and I'm going to just drop it right down on there. This is the retaining ring. I'm going to oil this as well before I install it. We can see as I expand this, it's like a slinky, it's like a spring. So we need to get this down into that recess and lock it down without breaking it. If we get it started, it will sort of expand outward. The diameter will change just like that. And guide it with a flathead screwdriver to get around these splines. Take my time. There we go. Once it's started like this, we could just walk it down. And lock it into the recess, making sure that all of it's locked in. There we go. It goes in rather easy. And it's in. There we go. We're locked in. We're done. Re-oil the shifting clutch again before I install it. And slide it right down. Turn the gear. Lock it in place. Put a little oil in this washer here. I'm going to place it right down like that. And then I want to re-oil this because it's been sitting a while. So I'm just going to pop this out here for a moment. There we go. Check to see that both are spinning. I could see that the gear and the brass bushing are both spinning independently, so that's good. I try in both directions just to look. Very nice. And just for posterity, I dropped that spacer on top. And we could say that this washer, now oiled, goes in here. And that completes counter shaft assembly. The next step that I'm going to be doing is the setting of the end play, this shim right here. And I will point out quickly that for the next step, just for setting that end play, I'm using the old shaft and seal. I'll be breaking out the new one for the actual installation, just so when you notice you see this wear on here and the flattened seal, that's what that's about. I have cleaned this shaft and oiled it before I'm going to be putting it in this new transmission, so no worries there. I'm going to lift up this countershaft gear assembly and make sure that this washer is in place here. I'm going to slowly lower this into position without dropping it. Just like that. We can see that the bigger gear here follows direction, smaller gear there, and vice versa. Bigger here, smaller there. It sets your direction. The shaft has the notch which holds onto the bracket on the far end. The seal is going to be on this side with the primary. We turn it up a bit if need be to I've got it into position. I'm using my finger on this side to support the cluster, and that makes it easier to push the shaft in, and I could feel my finger approaching the other side here. Obviously I don't want to come all the way through because I do need to put this shim in, and the easiest way is really going to be turning this up in this direction. So just to demonstrate, we could see my finger here through the bearing, and I'm just going to take the old one, I'm just going to slide it right in, and then I'm going to lift my finger up and I'm going to push my finger through it. I'm going to center it, of course, and now it's holding it in place. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the feeler gauge and I'm just going to stick it through that gap until I could feel it touch my finger, basically. Just slide in, touch my finger. And I'll tell you right now that this one, I've already preset this, obviously. And this one is 13 thousandths. 14 is too wide. So this one we're looking at just over 81, 81, 81, pretty even, 81 thousandths of an inch. So 81 plus 13 minus the optimal 4 thousandths gap will give us exactly 90 thousandths is what we're going to need. So we're going to replace this 81 with a 90. And J&P conveniently sells it in 5 thousandths of an inch increments, so no problem at all. Ordering a 90 thousandths spacer, I'll wait for it to arrive and we'll throw one in. The 90 thousandths has arrived, we'll be dropping it in now. Centered it with my finger inside, bring the shaft up from the bottom into position. There we go. So while I have it in this position, what I'm trying to do is I just want to give everything a good shake, just let everything settle down, because I really have a small amount of space to work with. And not only that, the feeler gauge is extremely flimsy at 4 thousandths of an inch, but I can see the room, but I just want to check with the feeler gauge and get between there. And the gauge does fit in between there 4 thousandths of an inch. So I do have the clearance. And I'm checking, and 5 does fit too, and that's fine. 5 has a really nice drag on it. Like I could get 5 in there and it drags nice, but 5's also easier to put in because it's thicker too. I'm going to say I definitely have 5 thousandths of an inch clearance on this. That's fine as well. 6 will almost fit, but it's very, very tough to do to stuff 6 in. So I'm going to say it's somewhere between 5 and 6 thousandths of an inch of end play on this transmission, and I'm going to leave it there. Officially leaving the end play value at 5 thousandths of an inch. The correct counter shaft can now go in. We'll do that now. Have the new counter shaft that came in the rebuild kit, and this is the seal kit. In this kit also contains the seal for the end of the counter shaft. Here they are unpacked. And this new metal shaft has been degreased and washed first to remove any packing grease and preservative from there. And now I'm going to re-oil it with transmission fluid before I put the seal on and install it. I'm going to apply some oil into these bearings one last time on both sides. Then we're just going to put the new shaft in as we did the old one. What I'm doing is I'm turning the notch to the approximately proper position before I push this all the way through, so I don't have to turn it on that rubber seal. And I've got it basically in position now with the Jim's logo. And now I can push it through. And very gently. Very slowly. And there it is. I got the notch pretty close. It will be set up based on the bracket. The locking bracket will show me exactly where that notch needs to be, and I'll adjust as necessary. A quick inspection with the bracket shows that if I line up the holes, I pretty much had it on the money, right? Not far off, so pretty good. And with that, the countershaft portion of the project is completed, and this concludes this chapter in this series. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, found it educational and informative. Please click that like button down below. Helps me out a lot when you do. The subscribe button and the bell. When the next video comes out, I will post a link above to it. There'll be many more to come. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?